All of you who have come here to attend the Institute lecture. Today we have a very distinguished guest amongst us, Dr. Anil K. Rajvanshi. Dr. Rajvanshi is a spiritual engineer. After his graduation in mechanical engineering from IIT Kanpur in the early 1970s, he went to the United States for higher studies. In the year 1981, he came back to India, and in the process of developing renewable energy technologies for rural areas, he discovered himself and the great spiritual traditions of India. He runs a small rural non-governmental organization called the Nimkar Agricultural Research Institute in Maharashtra and does research and development in various spheres, including renewable energy, rural and sustainable development, so on and so forth. For his work on renewable energy and sustainable development, he has won many prestigious national and international awards. In the year 2022, he was given one of India's highest civilian award, the Padma Shri. Dr. Rajvanshi also has a passion for writing articles on the interplay of spirituality and technology and has published numerous articles on this. This includes more than 200 articles in various newspapers and news items and among others. He is passionate about teaching youngsters and gives inspirational lectures all over India and abroad. And we would like to learn from his wisdom. And I now invite Dr. Anil Rajvanshi to deliver his talk on exploring deep science in Patanjali Yoga Sutras.
Can you hear me? Okay. Well, good evening, and I'm delighted to be back here. I wish there would have been many more people, but it's always a good idea to have interested people come and hear the lecture. How many of you have read Patanjali Yoga Sutras? How come all of you are sitting there? This was by design? Wonderful. So you know a little bit about it, so you are interested, and then we will explore this together on how the things have happened. Nearly 50 years ago, I graduated from this great institute. Let me get my glasses. Not only did I learn engineering, but I also learned about the spirit of inquiry and the value of education. This is a very important thing. The modern youngsters who graduate from this institute, they should think about it. This is a great institute and you should learn. Nobody will put it in your mouth. You have to extract, and that is a learning process. It is the spirit of inquiry that took me from IIT Kanpur to United States in 1974 and brought me back to rural Maharashtra in 1981. I have written about this journey in my book 1970s America, an Indian Student's Journey, and I'll show you on the last slide. All these my books are available freely on the internet, and I would urge you to please read them. The spirit of inquiry also propelled me on the path of spirituality. So good education and the desire to inquire are two potent tools to find new things which are away from the rut and the run of the mill path. Today's lecture is an outcome of their desire to understand and know the unknown. Normally I give lecture on my rural development work, as some of you may know, and this is probably the first time I am talking about this deep subject. So I will request your indulgence if I do any boo-boo, and some of you who have read Patanjali, I will request your indulgence. Now, somebody told me, I run a small NGO, Nimkar Agriculture Research Institute, And we are always looking for good people to come and help us and work with us. And this is something I think you will enjoy. I'm not asking you for the rest of your life. So come and help us in this new program of doing good agriculture, research, good technology development, and also spirituality. I am thinking of inspiring some of you, the youngsters, because to my mind, the future of this country, development is spirituality plus technology is equal to happiness. This is what I write. My latest book is on that, and I hope that some of you will take this path. Why interest in Patanjali Yoga Sutras? I'll talk about PYS for a short form. Sutras was the first book on yoga enunciated about 3000 years ago. So why interest in it? Something is written so long ago, why we are interested? Because we are very proud of our heritage. In fact, you feel attached to this country, the story of this country, through our great traditions. Not the bad part, but of the great philosophical thought that this country produced, and that should be the cause of great joy, happiness, and pride. Not only that, it is also very relevant to today's world, and that is what I'll talk about. Because all these old books, they have value when they are very relevant. They tell us how to live our life in the present world and how useful they are. In all civilizations, the value of old scriptures increases when they help us understand our present world and help us live a good life. Works of Kalidas, Panchtantra. How many of you read Panchtantra? That's a great book. All 5 books? All good. Homer, Socrates, Shakespeare, etc. are examples of such writings. Originator of the ideas who wrote these books asked some very fundamental questions. Answers to these may help mankind, and that is also the reason why we are interested in finding out what they wrote, why they asked the question, what they said, and how we can find out how applicable it is to our present society. According to me, Patanjali was a scientist, and this is my small attempt in identifying deep science in Patanjali Yoga Sutras. In fact, as I'll explain, the summary of the book is about, but before I'll talk about, the interesting part is, it is supposedly written 3000 years ago. We don't know when it was written, who wrote it, where he lived, but it is supposed to be written 3000 years ago. And all the things that we have known about this Patanjali Yoga Sutras, they were all clouded in mythology, the commentaries, starting from Vyas and going through even Adi Shankaracharya and hundreds of other commentaries. They all miss the point because Patanjali, to my mind, was a great scientist. And when you read today, and that is what my whole lecture is, you find the gems of science in it. And because of that, it was just talked about some simple things, and yet there is a very deep science involved in this. The book is also about how to maximize the living potential, is valid for today's time. It teaches in a scientific manner how to make the mind very powerful so it can comprehend any secret of the universe and helps in creating creativity. Now, we are because of our mind. In fact, the greatest discoveries have come because of concentration, intense thought on one topic of your subject that you are working on, whether it was Einstein or Newton or anybody. And that is what Patanjali talks about. How you can create this process, how you can create a powerful mind so that you can focus on a single thought or single object or a subject to find its complete answer. And that is the whole basis of the book. teaches us on how to use this powerful mind on different parts of the body to get supernatural powers. This is something very fantastic. These powers help in overcoming the vagaries of nature. And so basically he talks about the technology, how to make life easy so that you can use the technology for doing something better with your mind and with your time. And also shows that body is the most sophisticated machine in the universe. It talks about some very interesting things, and it's amazing. Naturally, today we also know all our design is basically biomimicry. We believe that still this is the most sophisticated machine designed by nature, and Patanjali knew about it. In fact, some of the things, some of the sutras that he talks about, it's amazing that 3,000 years ago, he talked about those things that we are trying to understand now. And so that makes us really wonder that what type of person Patanjali was. And then the use of supernatural powers together with understanding of universal laws helps us to overcome gravity and the cycle of birth and death. This is a very remarkable process. He talks about the cycle of birth and death, but basically it was getting out of the gravity of this planet. And when you get out of the gravity, naturally there are a lot of things which you read between the lines, and so we feel that maybe for this earth there was something, but for the rest of the universe there was something else. So what we have today, all ancient Indian scriptures passed on by word of mouth from Guru to Shishya. If you, what happened? Oh, so if you give or tell something to your neighbor and ask the neighbor to pass that information, and by the time you get that information, it is changed. We are talking about 3,000 years ago. It was all oral process. How can we be sure that what we have today is really what Patanjali or anybody wrote or said? I feel because when I read, I have a lot of commentaries, I read a lot of the commentaries, and I found there's a lot of sutras which are missing. There's a lot of jumping suddenly from pole star, he jumps to Nabhi, from the belly button, and so many other things. And it is possible that people did not understand, they left out the things, they may introduce something new or totally different. So, but what we have today is what we think he wrote or he enunciated. Written form appeared somewhere near 8th to 10th century. Most of the knowledge in PIS was conveyed 3,000 years ago, so authenticity of the material is a question mark. Authentic commentary by Adi Shankaracharya, somewhere in 8th to 10th century, that is what we have gotten. The historical records say that whatever Adi Shankaracharya gave a commentary on, the same things are carried forward. One does not know, but this is what people say. And most commentaries on PYS rooted in mythology did not understand the science in it. And the first commentary approaching partial scientific process was given by Vivekananda. His Raj Yoga is basically a commentary which is more scientific than anything else. And the funniest part was, he glossed over the real good parts. The Vibhuti path, which really talks about the technology, about the science, he totally glossed over. He took 5, 6 different sutras, and he says, this is what Patanjali said, and moved on to something else. And that is the meat of the whole system, and that is what I'll try to show. Who was sage Patanjali? This photograph has no resemblance to the real Patanjali. We don't know. It is just that this is put on the internet, and as you know, the WhatsApp university is the greatest university of mankind. So whatever one puts up, and then it continues. We do not know who he was, where in India he lived, and when did he write the sutras. Possible time around 3,000 years, and even multiple authors leading to possible changes and corruption of sutras. In fact, every book of ours whether it is Mahabharata or Ramayana, etc., one doesn't know because there was nothing written. So we say that it was passed from Guru to Shishya, but what happens in between we do not know. And Mahabharata is a classical example because it is so fantastic. There's so many stories built into it that there may be a lot of good people, great people who must have just introduced all these different stories. So one doesn't know what really took place. I was introduced to the Sutras at the age of 14. At the age, my father went to jail with Gandhiji, and he was very inspired naturally with the Gandhi philosophy. So at the age of 13, I was given on my birthday the autobiography of Gandhi in Hindi. I went to the poshest English school, speaking school in Lucknow, but my father said that I should learn Hindi, I should know Hindi. So he gave me the book of Mahatma Gandhi's Experiments with Truth, Meri Atma Katha in Hindi. And by reading that, it just changed my life, just like a switch. After I started reading it, I got into reading so many spiritual books and etc., including Patanjali Yoga. Now at the age of 14, what can a person understand about Patanjali Yoga? It's a very difficult book. My father had a Hindi, it was a Gita Press, Patanjali Yoga Sutras, and in which he had noted some things by pencil. And what impressed me at the time were the powers, the supernatural powers. And which 14-year-old boy does not want that he can read somebody's mind, can have the power of the elephant, or all sort of things. And so I thought this is a great book which tells you about how to do it. So I became interested. But then naturally, studying in IIT Kanpur, going to United States, learning about technology, rural development. So this all went backward, at the back of the back burner. Around 2000, when I started writing seriously on spirituality, I suddenly realized that what I am writing is nothing else but something that he wrote. And then I went back. And so what my today's lecture is basically a 20-25 year study. It is not a very great study, but it is a study of a very different nature than what you read otherwise in the commentary of Patanjali Yoga Sutras. Sage Patanjali has been my guru, just like Dronacharya was to Eklavya. Eklavya never went to Dronacharya. I never knew who Patanjali was, but I am sure that his spirit guides me in my journey. So whatever I have written on the spirituality for the last 20 years have been guided by the spirit of Sage Patanjali. So what is a book? The book is divided into 4 parts. It's called Pad. The first 2 pads are Samadhi path and Sadhana path. They each have 51, 55 sutras, and the whole focus is how to make the mind and the body powerful so you can focus on a single thought for a long time. And this is called Sanyam. Sanyam is nothing else but a combination of concentration, contemplation and Samadhi. So when you do your SMS, you are not contemplating. You are simply sending messages, receiving messages, and when you can't receive a message in 5 seconds, you get very agitated. Human mind is a very powerful mind, very powerful process, and if we cannot focus and contemplate, then we are just like animals. Animals react. We have become reactionaries. We really react. And so Patanjali says that if you want to do something worthwhile in life, you focus on something for a very long time. On anything. It is not necessary. You see the numbo jumbo that a lot of the people say you focus on God, etc. There's nothing like that. On your research, on anything, if you focus for a very long time, then everything vanishes, the spirit remains. And that is spirituality. Spirituality is nothing else but going deeper inside you, focusing on a single thought for a very long time, and that is why you can become spiritual. In fact, all the great thinkers, all the great scientists were spiritual in nature. I have believed that everybody, if you read their biographies, etc., you realize that they really found one solutions, and they looked at all different things. It was basically a spirituality because they were looking at the truth, and truth is spiritual. Then the third, which is a Vibhuti path, to my mind is the most important aspect of the book, and that is the meat, in which he says that using Sanyam on various parts of the body, you get supernatural powers and helps in overcoming the vagaries of nature, so technology development to make the life simple. And the final pad is Kevalya pad, which is basically deliverance, in which he says that use of supernatural powers together with understanding of universal laws leads to overcoming gravity and liberation from cycle of birth and death. In fact, if you read the Patanjali Yoga Sutras, they are so difficult. I have summed it up, and this is the total essence of the book. And this is what he talks about, and then you can always go deeper into it and find out what he meant. So what is so interesting about the book? First of all, the book is very dry. It is the first original book which does not talk about no story, and is just like a thermodynamics and a maths book. In fact, there are no deities, there are no mention of sacrifices. The whole Vedic literature is sacrifices, deities, gods, goddesses. Patanjali never believed in that. Patanjali, in fact, describes the original person that he calls Purush, or that he calls Ishwar. In fact, he does not describe it also. He says that he belonged beyond time, and it was his, how you describe him, it is the original word. And if we talk about the modern Big Bang theory, the first thing that came out was a sound. And the original word is what Patanjali describes, that Ishwar, or whoever, the beyond time. Since the subject matter is very deep and enunciated about 3,000 years ago, what we have today is probably not the whole book, as I said, lots of jumping around to the sutras, pointing to partial book and multiple authors. And second sutra sums up the book very nicely. It says, yoga means control of human thought. That's all. Yog, Chit, Vritti, Nirodh. Just 3 words, and it sums up the whole book. So if you control the human thought, that is the whole basis of yoga. And the funny part is that for Hatha Yoga, which people consider this book as a Bible, there are only 5 to 6 sutras for Hatha Yogis in this book. And yet it is supposed to be a compulsory reading for people who want to practice yoga, and they don't understand that this book is all about thought, how to create a powerful mind, and how to become a great human being. So now I'll talk about the science of the glimpses of scientific gems. In Sutra 53 to 55 of Vibhuti Path, Patanjali says, by making Sanyam on a single moment and on the sequence of moments, a yogi gets vivek, wisdom, so that he or she can comprehend all the objects in the world simultaneously, irrespective of their location or the sequence of change. It's a very profound sutra, or basically the mind of God. Einstein's theory of gravitation states events and the interval between the events builds space-time. The geometric nature of space-time gives rise to gravity, which tells the mass how to move and is the basis of universe. And that, according to Einstein, was the basis of the mind of God. So it's very amazing how this sutra matches very closely what Einstein wrote about his gravitation theory. In Sutra 31, Patanjali says the Sanyam on the hollow of throat or esophagus tube, he really clearly writes that one conquers hunger and thirst. We now know that if you stimulate the vagus nerve at this hollow of throat is where the maximum concentration of vagus nerve is. Vagus nerve is the body's highway, information highway. It transfers information from the brain to different parts of the body, like heart, kidney, lungs, etc. And from there, the information goes to the brain. And the right and left vagus nerve, they combine near the esophagus tube. And today, we have stimulators where you can put this stimulators to stimulate the vagus nerve, and hunger pangs can be reduced. In fact, this is a FDA has approved these devices. They are available in America, and it is basically for removing or reducing obesity. Now you can imagine 3,000 years ago, he talked about this in a very remarkable manner. That is, to me, was a great thing about how this man thought about it. He knew the inside out of the human body. He knew that these things could be done, and we are now discovering this. So that is also the value of some of these great old books, which to my mind was a very scientific book, because it doesn't say any numbo jumbo. It says you do A, B, C, D, you reach E, and that is science. It does not say that only Mr. So can do, Mr. So and so can do it, and you cannot do it. It says anybody can do it. In Sutra 21, by doing sanyam on the body shape, and is changed so that the reflected light does not reach the eye of the beholder, one can make the body invisible. This process is used in stealth aircraft. In the radar spectrum, and now we are looking at nanomaterials, which will make it possible to even go in the visible spectrum. So these are the things which he talked about so long ago, and now these are possible with the new materials and new technologies. It is possible to do that. In Sutra 35, I'm just giving you a glimpse to give you an idea that how close some of the things that he wrote are to the modern science and technology, and there are many more still need to be discovered, which at least I have not discovered. It is my desire that some of you smart people may discover it. Sutra 35, he says, Sanyam on heart gives complete knowledge of consciousness. Today we know that there is a very close connection between the heart and the mind. They talk to each other. And it is amazing that both emotionally and physically, again through the vagus nerve, they are connected. Heart, the high pressure, the stress in the brain, so many things. The signature, when the firing takes place of the AV and NV node, etc. in the heart, these are all controlled by the brain. And when you do something with the heart, then the brain gets affected. And yet he wrote all these things 3,000 years ago. In Sutra 19, he says yogi can read other person's mind by doing sanyam on that person's thought structure. And this is what attracted me to Yoga Sutras when I was 14. I said, what a fantastic power. If I can get a power to read somebody else's mind, then what more do you need? And today, we can do that slowly, by various processes of artificial intelligence. Basically, it is MRI. You know how you can know that somebody's thought? You put all these electrodes, then the MRI, and now you can see when you think about certain thing, how you are thinking. And with AI, slowly, this is around 25-30% efficiency, and they think that very soon it will come to 50% and more. So and this is what he wrote so long ago, and hypnosis. So these are the things which tell you that there are so many interesting things, and that is why it is necessary for us that we should go deeply into it and find maybe there is something totally new for our science and technology that we'll discover in it. And in Sutra 1 of Kevalyapat, or basically the last section, he says all supernatural powers can also be obtained by drugs usage. To my mind, this was the first book which talked about drugs. People talked about somras, etc., but here was Patanjali who talked about that you can get all these powers. And we know today that the psychedelic drugs, psilocybin, LSD, etc., have shown this out of body experiences, telepathy, and all have been reported by drug users. In fact, it's very interesting. You know, when I was a student, do you know, I think Narayan, Jagdish, this guy, the father of this LSD from Harvard, he had come here to give a lecture. And I was very impressed because, you know, what was his name? I forget now. Anyway, huh? No, this was the way back in 60s when they were just discovering LSDs, etc. He came to IIT Kanpur and gave a lecture. And by the time I had read Ramakrishna Paramhans, and he had explained what he saw during the time of very deep meditation. And what that gentleman told me and what Ramakrishna Paramhans things were, matched so much. So I said, this is amazing. You can do the same thing with LSD. What Ramakrishna took years for practice. And today they are finding, in fact, salobicin, small quantities have become the most useful thing for people who are in depression and so many other things. So these are things which is so amazing that he talked about in those old times. And we are finding them with our modern science and technology. There are two very interesting sutras on anti-gravity. You know, you wonder, this is a book on thought control. This is a book on how to live a good life. And suddenly, where does this anti-gravity come in? And I felt that maybe Patanjali was an extraterrestrial, an alien who came long ago and gave this knowledge because he believed in the intergalactic travel. And I think that a person could only, somebody who has done it, would do that. Sutra 43 says, Sayam on the relationship of body and space, he calls it Akash, can make the body dissolve cellularly, become light as a cotton fiber, that is what he explains in his sutra, and transport it through space. There was a Harvard professor called John Mack. He interviewed hundreds of people who said that they were abducted by these aliens. And he was a very famous professor. He was censured in Harvard. Why are you doing this? But later on, he was absolved. And he wrote this wonderful book. And he interviewed people not only in America, Latin America, other countries of the world. And they all had a very similar stories. How they were transported from one place to another through this process, that they felt that their body simply dissolved and got formed again. This is like a 3D printing. Today you send the information through the computer, you basically send the template, and then you have the 3D printed material. So the same thing that Patanjali talks about. And it is so uncanny how it comes so close to what these people said, that we went through the glass, we went through the door, we went through everything, and just we felt that this is how it got dissolved. And he clearly says that it becomes like a light as a cotton fiber, but basically it was dissolving. So I consider this as a tunneling. You have heard, if some of you are physics, you know what tunneling is. This is basically a tunneling process. Corroborated by UFO abductees, concept of matter tunneling, 3D printing process. In Sutra 40, he says, by doing sanyam on vital currents of body, a yogi masters the art of walking on water, mud or thorns without touching them. And they point us to the magnetic levitation. So if some of you know what gravitation theory is, if I produce by some magic means an anti-gravitation thing, the gravity of earth is so powerful that I'll be just thrown off. And yet he talks about that how you can float very slowly. That cannot happen with the anti-gravity device. It could be some magnetic levitation. They have seen this. You know, the levitation has been documented. So, you know, please consider documentation, and from Gautam Buddha all the way to the latest. Gautam Buddha is supposed to have levitated on some river. Christ was supposed to have levitated. So many documentations are there. And people still do not know how it was done. But Patanjali talks about how you can do it. We don't know. He just talks about it. And I feel that this is something that we can think about, we can do some more work, because human body is so fantastic. Maybe I do not know, just something to think about. Can we produce a superconductor based upon the human body? I do not know, just some sort of a thought like that. Then abruptly in the middle of Vibhuti Path, Patanjali talks about stars. Out of nowhere. That's where a lot of jumping is. You know, this book on thought control, and suddenly stars come. This points to Patanjali being an ancient astronaut and the desire to talk about celestial objects for galactic travel. He talks about three things: sun, moon, and pole star. And I am very much sure if he was a galactic traveler, then there must be other sutras about different other stars, but which there is nothing right now. In Sutra 27, he says, Sayyam on sun, one obtains knowledge of universe and Akash. It's very interesting. Sun is the giver of life. The sun's rays gave life here on this planet Earth. But Patanjali never talks about that. He talks about how you can do Sayyam on sun and you get the knowledge about the space and about the universe, basically about the gravity. And I feel that the understanding of nature of sun, the greatest gravity source of the solar system, points to understanding of space-time continuum and hence the gravity. And he wanted us to think that this is something which is possible. Interestingly, Patanjali does not talk about life-giving energy of the sun. In Sutra 28, he talks on Sanyam on moon, a yogi understands the arrangement of planets. The interesting part is Newton developed the theory of gravitation just by this single thought. How does moon go around the sun? When there was a plague, he was banished to his hometown. There was nothing else. He sat, and this is a proverbial thing that he had the apple fall on his head. God knows when it really happened, but he thought very deeply, single point focus, just like Patanjali said. And he thought about how the moon goes around on the earth. And that was the basis of his whole theory of gravitation. And this is what the Patanjali talks about. Then in Sutra 29, he says, Sayyam on pole star, a yogi understands the movement and speed of stars. You know, it's very interesting how precisely he talks about these things. That when you do this, this is what happens. And we know that pole stars have been used throughout the ages for mapping the skies, calculating the speed of stars, and navigation. And I feel that there could be many sutras about celestial planets they are missing. And these sutras were discovered much before Copernicus, Socrates, Galileo, Newton. It's a very remarkable thing, how that man, single man, if it is a single man, who thought about these things and enunciated them. So the uniqueness of Patanjali Yoga Sutras is he's shown glimpses of science and TYS. Many more sutras needs to be explored through the prism of science, and some more sutras have been examined in my booklet in Patanjali. I'll share that URL with you. You can go through it. The most important thing is this: comparison of sutras with modern science is neither to glorify our past nor to belittle the latter. It is just to show that the knowledge and truth comes from the same source. And that source is irrespective of the person and time. If Einstein had not been there, some new Einstein would have come. It is the accumulation of knowledge which gives you this critical mass by which new knowledge is produced. And that is a very remarkable process which I thought is what Patanjali showed. The comparison also helps us establish the value and authenticity of the scientific aspects of sutras and shows the possibility that others may hold secrets of new and scientific natural laws. Please understand that unless until all these sutras pass through the real definition of science, then otherwise they will all be humbug. So it has to be how we can replicate anything, because the scientific laws have to be followed, or new science had to be created so that they all follow the scientific method. The similarity between the supernatural powers written in Sutras and the exhibited by extraterrestrials is so uncanny that one wonders whether sage Patanjali was himself an extraterrestrial. And he mentions that in one sutra. He says, after the yogi has gained all these supernatural powers, he may be visited by the celestial beings, but he should not be tempted by them. In fact, when all these people who were abducted, they said they were extremely afraid because their whole mind was simply controlled by these alien beings. Naturally, they were very, very powerful, and everything was telepathically. And this is something which can control the mind. And if you have gone through this yogic process that Patanjali says, then you will not be afraid, you will not be enticed by them, and you can then interact with them. So the concluding remarks are that TYS showed 3000 years ago that technology is necessary for the spiritual progress. And to my mind was the first book to talk about the interface of spirituality and technology. And that is what I've been writing on. And this is, to my mind, is also a new thought from India, that spirituality plus technology should be the new paradigm of development. Spirituality gives you the wisdom to use the technology properly, and technology is necessary to make your life simple and make your life easy. So both the combination of these, and Patanjali shows that you can do this and to help you go to higher things. It also shows that a necessary and sufficient condition for evolution of technology is spirituality. You may go on the path of technology and you will destroy everybody because you will not have the vivek to utilize it properly. And I believe that that is the most important thing. In fact, his Vibhuti path is the third path. First two were how to develop your brain, so you develop spirituality, so you have the vivek to utilize that powerful brain to everything that you want. And that is the very important thing. Today, we are developing weapons, we are developing so many things to kill each other. In fact, everything that we do is basically to harm people. And unless and until we are spiritually evolved, that everything should be done for the benefit of mankind and for the universe, then we will not be able to evolve also technologically. This is what I feel. India has given periodically great thoughts to the world, and I feel that the spirituality plus technology is equal to happiness should be a new paradigm of development. And this is my latest book in which I explore this subject further and how it can be done. And so we should study other great scriptures of India with the prism of science, and we can find out a lot of very interesting things. These are my two books on Patanjali's basically Yoga Sutras. One is The Nature of Human Thought, which was published in 2004, first edition. Second was 2010. And the latest book is Exploring the Mind of God, or How Technology Guided by Spirituality Can Lead to Happiness. And both these books are available on Amazon and are also available on the internet freely. So you can read and think. And thank you very much. And this is my book on my journey from IIT Kanpur to United States and back. This is also freely available from the net. You can copy these URLs. And I have left the whole presentation here, and it can be shared to the student community. Thank you very much. It was lovely.
Thank you, Dr. Rajvanshi, for this very inspiring talk. The floor is open for questions now.
Thank you for the talk. Well, as an IIT faculty member, I have to say that I think it's my duty to say that everything sounds nice in theory, but it's not a science until it is really practiced and demonstrated. So do you also teach samyama? And can we have some can we have some practical angle to this, you think?
But see, if you follow Patanjali's, have you read, follow that, it is very clearly written how you can reach Sanyam. Sanyam is nothing else but a focus on a single thought for a very long time. That's all. You focus on anything. You are a faculty member, you must be working on your projects. You just focus on the project. A lot of thoughts will come, a lot of distractions will come.
I'm especially interested in gravity, actually. If someone can demonstrate that, I'd be very interested in understanding the mechanism of that. So, just last comment is, if we can have some practical, because I know people have been talking about this Indian philosophy and Puranas have everything. It's just, I mean, seems like theory. No one is really practically demonstrating anything substantial, which is why the civilization has gone down, I feel. So, if someone can come and teach these processes, I think that's where India's real glory will be, rather than discussing all these things in theory and this is great, that is great. Do we really understand it? Can we really practice it? Can we really demonstrate it? Can we really teach it? Can we really help the next generation grow with it?
You understood the lecture at all. This was very clearly written.
Sure.
What we are talking about is that what is in that, if you understand, supposing you understand the gravity, you try to see what was written there. I am not saying that he is teaching you something totally new, but I am simply saying that this is what was written at that time and how it matches with the modern thinking that we have. He is not.
I beg to differ, but I think it would be better done practically than discussed theoretically.
Well, we can discuss this.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Sir, a very enlightening lecture. I wanted to know that some scientists like Newton have also written about spirituality and science as well. Okay, so people have found that out that when they write about spirituality, they keep science apart, and when they write about science, they keep spirituality apart. But
there is no separation. Einstein also was very much interested in spirituality.
yeah,
He has written also about his mind of God and so many other things. Whenever you are looking for the truth, ultimately this leads you to all these things. It's not religion. It is simply going deeper into anything, and that is spirituality. So Newton was very much inspired by the Old Testament, and being a great thinker, he thought, let me look at what is the basic truth in Testament. So he tried to justify so many things. In fact, 50% of his life he wrote on spirituality.
Sir,
Yeah, that's what you're right.
ours is a very complex society, various religions. I'll love that you spend some more time and correlate spirituality, technology, and religion. So,
They
because
don't mix. Religion and spirituality don't mix.
so if you can correlate, so that will help many problems in our country.
Jagdish?
Anil, great talk.
Coming from you, I really feel flattered.
See, the challenge is that the human mind is a monkey mind. And it's not easy to concentrate. So,
But we can do that.
yeah. So if we can provide a path so that people can concentrate. See, today's technology rewards multitasking, which is anti this thing. You know, I had a lot of kids which thought multitasking is key for them to get a big job. But to dig deeper is anti. So that's a challenge, you know, that today's society promoting multitasking. But we need concentration. And so it almost requires a rewiring of brain. And I see
No,
that's...
it does not require. In fact, people who work into this multitasking, they are also realizing that it does not help. There were a lot of books which are written that you should just think for a second and that's it. But now they are realizing brain is a very fantastic machine. It gets rewired very rapidly. If you focus and you do something, it gets rewired. You know, I have given a lot of thought. I know where the thought is produced, what exactly is the mechanism. That these neural pathways that are formed, they are also the mechanism by which you can lose your memory, or you can forget a lot of things. Because the energy that goes in producing a concentrated thought requires all that memory dissolutions. And that is what Patanjali writes, that by doing this, the sanskars can be removed. These are very interesting things that are there.
So,
Yes, yes. You know, we still do not know how the thought process takes place, but if you start concentrating on a certain single thing, naturally you require a lot of processing power. When you have a lot of memory knots, then the processing power reduces. So you need to dissolve those memory knots. So those memory knots are the compartmentalization. In fact, as you grow older, you know, my mother died at the age of 96, and she was in misery, etc. So I used to tell her, I said, why don't you think about happy thoughts? She says, they never come. It is very surprising. When the memory space is taken care by these memory knots, you cannot think of those happy thoughts because there is no processing power. So the compartmentalization is not at all possible or acceptable. Compartmentalization means that you are creating the memory knots. What you should do is focus on a single thought and then let the things flow. That's all.
so,
Yes.
so to bring these concepts into practicality, in actual experimentation time, as Sir was asking, I've been through the book, and it says Dirkale Narantarya. He has said to practice for Abhyasa and Vairagya. He has said in Patanjali Yoga Sutras, it's written Abhyasa, and what's required for Chitravritti Nirodha is Abhyasa and Vairagya. And for Abhyas, he has said, do it Dirkale Narantare, means for a long time, an unstopping way. So I've also thought about this, and I've thought that maybe it takes a lot of years to actually bring Chittavritti Nirodha. Maybe that's why.
You see, the question is that you should try first. It may be very distracting initially. And if you try to bring again your mind to that thing that you are thinking, then slowly it develops. I have done this with my life.
Like like, are there a specific number of time or nothing?
You cannot have a switch.
Yeah.
See, the switch is what people are always looking for. I should have a switch. Maybe a guru should touch you and then you get suddenly enlightenment. These are things would happen. People say that happens, but I don't believe that.
Namaste. Thanks so much for the talk. I found it interesting. I mean, obviously it seems like you are a much informed scholar on the topic. My question is regarding, so you described Vibhuti as the most interesting part of the book, if I may say that. Can you explain to me what and how aspects of the sadhana part, meaning if he talked about sadhana, what kind of practices he talked about at that point of time, which can translate to, in one way or another, daily lives of the current times. Current times are different times, right?
No, but see, there are a lot of books available.
No, that I know. What I'm asking is...
So you read them, that all different ways in which you can focus on a thought. Basically, what I described, the single thought, just focus on single thought. Whatever it is, you are working on a project, think about the project. That's all. All the sadhana, everything will become very clear.
No, what I'm asking is, ki in Patanjali's mind, what is the difference between sadhana, samadhi, vibhuti in terms of practices? By practices, I mean actions.
I told you that the first two sections, he talks about different ways of focusing on a single thought. He talks about what happens to the mind, what exactly is the process of seedless samadhi, non-seedless samadhi, etc., etc. But what I gave you is a gist of what exactly he talked about. Yeah.
Dr. Rajvanshi,
Yes.
Thanks for the enlightening talk. I'm curious whether there are any sutras on water or environment-related sutras which...
This is very interesting. You know, he never talks about any of these things. And even for the sun, he does not talk about the solar energy. Maybe because it was his whole whatever maybe missing. In fact, also such a deep book. If you want to write a math book or a physics book, if a deep book, you will explain everything very nicely. There are no great explanations. It is possible that things are missing because people did not understand, they left, whatever it is. There could have been many, many more sutras on so many things. But whatever we have itself is so revealing about the science. That's why I started on this journey.
If there are no further questions, let's put our hands once again for Dr. Rajvanshi for this inspiring talk. I would like to request Professor Kantesh Balani, our Dean of Resources and Alumni, to give this small memento on behalf of the Institute to Dr. Rajvanshi.